don't get any interruptions that way. So I do have the kettle boiling, and I'm wondering if that's going to be noisy. So I'm just going to let that go ahead and finish, because we're going to need some boiling water for part of our recipes. Well, welcome everyone. I see the participant number trickling in, and people are slowly coming in. I do have a pot boiling, so I apologize if the audio isn't very good. Hopefully that won't take much more than another minute. Didn't think about it being loud. I'm used to using a mic, a lapel mic, so I don't have to worry about external noises. But today I'm not using the lapel mic because I was worried it wouldn't react with Zoom, and I just didn't want to have a bunch of technical difficulties this morning, so apologize for that sound quality, but it will turn off here pretty shortly. So I'll introduce myself. My name is Poch, and I'm actually a counselor and a life coach, a health coach, and nutritionist. I took the Total Health School of Nutrition. It was a plant-based nutrition diploma program, so I've done that. I've done some cooking shows, not very many, but I've done a couple cooking shows for a network called 3ABN, which was broadcast in the US and across the world a little bit. I have done a Zoom cooking school, but it's been a while, so I'm hoping that I'll be able to keep moving quickly. And typically when I do my filming, I film myself, I edit myself, and so I have lots of flexibility. And if I make mistakes, I can edit it out. But today is live, so working on that. So thank you. Anna's put my Facebook page on there. Yeah, and if you have any questions, you get cut off. If you can always go back to the video chat on A Small World. And I did put the cookbooks there, so hopefully you all got the cookbook and can download it from there. Actually, I could even attach it to this. I think I can attach it here. Let me just go ahead and put the cookbook in the chat box. Okay. Yeah, it's uploading. So you should be able to get the cookbook in the chat box if you haven't got it already. So anyways, this is you're gonna have the modified version, but this is basically what I just sent in the chat box. And so yeah, we're gonna be cooking from there. Let's see, was there anything else I was gonna say? Oh, yeah, I guess I should tell you just a little bit more about myself in terms of, I call myself a flexitarian. I was vegan for almost 10 years. Went back to eating some animal products. Sometimes I have a little bit of dairy here and there. And when we eat out with friends or family, I'm not quite as picky, but at home, try to eat a lot of plant-based foods. Yay, it's finished. So we won't have that goofy noise going in the background. All right, so today I thought I would do just some really couple simple recipes with you, just so you can see how easy it is to eat plant-based. And while I'm making the recipes, I'll try and throw in some nutritional tips. Feel free to ask any questions. If you're new to plant-based cooking, let me know in the chat. And if you're an old hat, if you've been doing plant-based cooking for a long time, go ahead and pop that in the chat as well. So hopefully you will interact. And I also want to know where you guys are from, so you can go ahead and put that in the chat as well. So I'm in British Columbia, Canada. I live in the mountains. I live literally in the mountains. I have a 180-degree view of mountain ranges, and I just love it here. It's like a little park. All right, so today the first thing I want to make is a roasted veggies, and the reason I picked this one was because you can adapt it to so many different vegetables. And I know we have people from all over the world. I did have a quick look, and so from Europe and I think there was a couple from Asia, and down south, Australia, New Zealand. in the US. I've seen a few people from the US, and I think I even saw a couple Canadians. So, so I picked roasted vegetables because I think that that is a great staple to have, and you can put all kinds of different vegetables in here. The trick with doing a one dish vegetable, well, welcome from Germany. Yes, thank you. My best friend growing up in high school was German. And I was Italian, so it was pretty lively. So I picked the thing with roasted vegetables because there's a trick to having one dish meals, and that is you start to learn how fast things cook, and that might take you some time, but you chop them based on the time to cook, and then you're not burning one thing while the other thing is still raw. So like when we do a roasted potato dish or roasted vegetables, we're going to have the peppers we're going to chop quite a bit bigger than like the potato. Potatoes can be pretty small, and then the carrot will be about the size of the potato because it cooks about that same length of time. And I'm going to do this one really simple because of my own health. I don't do a lot of garlic and onion anymore. In fact, I do almost none. So if you're going to do onion, leave them big chunks so that they don't burn, but they still get the flavor in there. Okay, so we'll start off by washing the potatoes. These are actually been pre-washed. I'm just sort of re-rinsing to make sure we get off all the dust and whatnot. I keep a lot of kitchen cloths because I got tired of going through paper towel. So I just bought a stack of cloths and I can have them handy. Right. But yeah, some more of a flexitarian. Yeah, I call myself I call myself a flexitarian because I like to be flexible, but I want to be health minded. So I'm just gonna, I always keep my boner really handy. The sharper the knife, the less work it is, and the more likely, or the less likely you are to hurt yourself. So, and I'm actually mostly low FODMAP as well. Someone was putting that in the chat. Sorry if I'm not gonna say your names because I can only see the screen. Like I've got the screen set up over there and I can just read the chat a little bit. Hello from New York as well. Great. So yeah, it's not too, I'm gonna leave the peelings on, adds a little fiber. You're welcome to take the peeling off. I love yellow potatoes because I love the moisture and they're a bit, there's a proper word for this and it's slipping my mind right now. Waxy, they're kind of the halfway between a waxy potato and a starchy potato. So starchy potatoes are quite dry and they make for more like fluffy mashed potatoes or the fluffy baked potato. And then the waxy potatoes tend to be quite moist and they can almost be gummy when you whip them up for mashed potatoes. But personally, I love a yellow potato, and there's different yellow potatoes across the world. So I won't even begin to talk about how many different varieties there are of potatoes. But I love the yellow potatoes. To me, they're an all-purpose potato. They never go really dry. I prefer the moist as opposed to the russets or the standard over here in North America. And they're just quite dry to me. So I actually have a bunch of yellow potatoes in my garden right now, although it got pretty hot. So I think the plants are good. Hello, Alex from Switzerland. Glad to have you here. All right, so we're just gonna, you can see I'm not being super careful, but they are fairly even. So just trying to get them fairly even. And I haven't cooked professionally in a kitchen in a very long time. I did work in a restaurant, and I worked at a soup kitchen actually for a few years. And if you come across like little blemishes that you want to take off, you just can go ahead and take those off before they go in the bowl. And I have a friend who is a chef and runs a restaurant, and she said, Angie, you can wear the chef's coat because I know that it suits you because I felt a little awkward, you know. Oh, I don't cook professionally anymore, at least not in terms of in a kitchen, professional kitchen. But so almost got all these in here. I want to get these in the oven. So some of the other dishes we're going to make today, I already have. Well, I'll demonstrate for you, but I have them already cooked because they take a little longer to cook, and I want to make sure you guys get to see the finished product as well. So potatoes are a big staple for me, especially in vegetarian cooking. They have protein, fiber, starch, super healthy. Okay, so that's the potatoes. Feeling a little, there we go. All right, so now we can do the carrots. Just go ahead and peel those. I did design my kitchen for doing demonstrations, so that's why everything's like in drawers and handy. But carrots are full of beta carotene, great vitamin A for your vision and many other things. Antioxidants, the darker the color, the more antioxidants in general, generally speaking. So, you know, sweet potatoes, you could do this dish with sweet potatoes, you could do it with yams. You know, my husband was in Nigeria for a little while, and there was all different kinds of root vegetables that they cook with. So yeah, you could just, the trick is to know, you know, how your root vegetable, how fast it cooks, right? So these carrots, I'm going to do a little bit bigger chunks because, like I said, I don't want them to burn. So probably about that big. And these ones I might do half because I think that's a little too big. And if you're in a hurry, you can get those pre-packaged, you know, little finger carrots. They call them baby cut carrots because they're probably not, most of them aren't baby carrots, they're just cut to look like baby carrots. But that works. Let's take that off. Put that in there. Okay. And you can put more carrots in here. That kind of looks a little, kind of looks like that could have used more carrot to me. I do cook with my eyes mostly, so that might be why I do try to get the recipes really close. But definitely love cooking with my eyes. So keep my area clean. All right, and again, the peppers, I'm going to go fairly big, but see, the thing with peppers is even when they get blackened, they're still tasty. They in fact, I'll do up a whole batch of, I'll get peppers, red peppers on sale, and then I'll bake them in the oven at about 450 until they start getting quite black in big chunks, and roast them up, chop them up, and throw them in the freezer so that I have them in the freezer. Ready to go for dishes. Like my son makes an orange cheese sauce with cashews. And last week when I had my friend over, she's like, I think I might put this on the restaurant menu so I have some dishes for vegetarians and vegans because it was such a delicious cheese sauce. It's a nacho cheese sauce and it is in the cookbook. Okay, actually I think I'm going to take that little bit of black off. All right, so that's the start. I'm not going to keep going because we want to get these in the oven. But like I said, you can add other vegetables to this mix for sure. That's just the base. Okay. Hello from Barcelona and another flexitarian. That's great. Yeah. Great. Hiking in BC. Yeah. Yay. I love it here. All right, so we're just gonna put a couple tablespoons of oil. Now you can, you know, to keep the calories down and stay more whole food, you could just spray the pan and put very little oil in here. Or oil will add flavor, And if you use canola oil or soy oil, I'm not sure how available canola is across the world, but it's full of omega-3. But soy also has omega-3, which is a really great fat to have in our body. It's great for the brain and the heart. Okay. Now here's where you can have fun. So where this is, you can season this in so many different ways with so many different flavors, and you could just keep changing it up with different flavors. And I'm going to give you a bit of a tip. If you're going to use fresh herbs, again, they might burn. You can either use a lower temperature and cook it lower and longer, slower and longer, low and slow, I guess is what they say. Or you can use bigger chunks. Like rosemary doesn't burn real easy, and you could just leave it in a couple big chunks, just like that. And it will actually get the flavor permeated through there. And then maybe I'll throw in a couple basil leaves. I'm gonna leave the parsley for now though. The parsley would burn pretty quickly. So. And we want to season it with some salt. Now I have my own seasoning salt. I did see someone mention that they were doing low FODMAP. So I make my own seasoning salt. And for those of you who don't know what the heck low FODMAP is, it's a diet for people who have bowel issues, and you're welcome to email me if you want to chat about that later. This one isn't specific to that. It's just that's how I cook. So I make my own seasoning salt. But you could just use any purchased seasoning salt. You could just use salt, pepper. I use a little cayenne in here, paprika. So again, just flavor it how you might like, and just give it some seasoning salt. And again, I'm just going to keep mixing that up. I'm mixing it and also kind of judging to see if I want a little more oil, because I do want to kind of coat it really lightly, but I do want to coat it because I do enjoy that flavor. But like I said, you are more than welcome to use way less oil to keep the calories down. Again, if this has not got a lot of oil on it, then you do want to oil the dish, or you can use a non-stick spray. They even make those spray bottles. You can put just olive oil in it. So many options nowadays out there. So really, now I use my hands a lot in cooking, and I find I'm intimidated to use my hands. Looks like there's a waiting room. Anna, are you going to take care of the waiting room? I'll just leave that to you. Yeah, so I use my hands a lot. I don't know why. I feel intimidated to do it on camera. I don't know why, because we use our hands all the times in professional cooking. But I think it's just one of those things that was like, I don't know, I feel like we're not supposed to. You're going to get in trouble from mom. We put our hands in the food. Okay. All right, I'm going to get that in right away. So hopefully it's ready before we finish today. So it's a little full. And we may not just stir it during cooking, but I'm going to go ahead and put that in the oven. Okay, so now another great thing about plant-based cooking is cross-contamination is not an issue. Not much of an issue. I mean, it's not like you have to worry about the salmonella that might be on your chicken, and you have to be super obsessive about your, have separate cutting boards and all that stuff. With plant-based cooking, if a little potato or a little herbs got on something else, all you have to worry about is maybe some taste transfer. But for the most part, it's just sort of, it's food safety-wise, it's quite nice. Okay, so that's the roasted potatoes that I got in the oven. And the next thing I want to do for you is the gluten steak, or seitan steak. Now, I know a lot of people are going gluten-free, so I did include in the book a gluten-free version of a patty, or a steak, a cutlet that you can make with, which one did I put in there? Better look at my notes so I don't say the wrong thing. Oh, the lentil quinoa burger. So, and if you want, I think it's 10 of my cookbooks free on my website. So that's bodymindhealthcoach.com. And you can download those cookbooks free. I did a series of 7 cookbooks. They don't have a lot of photos. There are some photos, and they kind of cover all kinds of different things. And there are a ton of entree recipes in there and different patties, chickpea patties, garbanzo beans, things like that. But there is a gluten-free one in that book that you can download here. Okay, but I like gluten, and the great thing is, with a low FODMAP diet, you actually can have the gluten. It's the wheat portion. It's the sugars of the wheat that we can't have. So, great. I kind of want to keep my area clean. I feel like it's a little bit cattywampus right now, so hopefully that's not looking too messy for you guys. I have an obsession about what the camera looks like after doing video production. I'm a little like, is that still the view of the camera? Let me grab a bowl here. Okay, here we go. So I buy my gluten in like stacks because I use so much, because I can make up big batches of stuff and throw it in the fridge, or the freezer, excuse me. So I do tend to buy it in big batches. It's generally, you can find it at most grocery stores, at least in North America. And if not, bakery supply stores, because it is added to bread, helps the bread to get nice and fluffy. It helps hold the shape for those bubbles, like especially in those artesian breads with the nice big bubbles and holes. That's the gluten. Let me just set up my workstation here, get the mise en place organized. Okay, so let me grab the recipe here. So this is on page 35 of that cookbook. And like I said, the gluten-free version is on page 34. And everything, the dessert's going to be gluten-free. So hopefully you're not going to go, oh, I'm going to spend the whole time watching her make gluten patties and I can't eat gluten. All right, so that's why I put the kettle on. I'm going to go ahead and get that, I got to get the bouillon dissolving. So let me just grab my, sorry about the noise, guys. Let me get the bouillon dissolving. So again, everybody's going to be from all over the world. So it's probably going to be very helpful for me to tell you which bouillon I use. Just, use your favorite tasty bouillon. If you have a beef flavored one available, that's my preference for these particular patties. But you're welcome to just use a regular bouillon. And you can even make your own vegetable stock if you're really ambitious and want to do something like that. So I'm going to do 2 bouillon cubes that's going to go in the patties, and then I'm doing 3 bouillon cubes that's going to go in the broth, which the patties will absorb. So eventually it's all going to get in there. All the yummy goodness is going to get inside these patties. And you could do these chicken, but yeah, depends on the flavors you have available. All right, I'm going to put the hot water in these so we can get these dissolving. Okay, so while those are dissolving, we'll go ahead and put our gluten-free flour in. Now, I did put in your book, and these are enlarged, but this is what your cookbook's going to look like, smaller version. And there's only a few recipes that I had time to test the weights, because this week I really hurried and tried to put the weights in for you, because I know a lot of people don't use the cups across the world. And I thought, oh, I need to put the weights in for you guys. And I apologize, I did not get all the recipes tested in this cookbook. So please be careful when you're using the weight conversions. I did my best to try and do the right numbers, but they aren't all tested. But I did write down if I have tested it. So if it on the bottom says that they weight tested, then that means I actually went through and measured and then put it on the scale so that it was right for you guys. Okay. All right, so this calls for 2 cups of gluten flour. And the other thing is, cooking, unlike baking, is pretty forgiving. So, I mean, even if you're off a little bit, generally speaking, it'll turn out not too bad. It's not like making candy where you've got to be really, really accurate with your temperatures and your measurements. Cooking is pretty forgiving. All right, and then I'm going to use 1 cup of large flake oats. Now, you could use the smaller ones as well. It gives it a bit of texture. and some whole wheat flour. This just adds some fiber and some whole grains. So one of the other handouts that I sent, if you've looked at it already, that I put in the, that, I guess it was a, is it called a chat? Anna, I'm not sure, but you know where it was attached to this video, the discussion page, I guess it is called. There we go, discussion page. If you saw that handout, meal planning can be really easy when you're plant-based. And actually the handout I gave you, the concept actually comes from the Canadian Food Guide and also the Diabetes Association. And they use the plate method where you take a plate, you just divide it into chunks and decide what to put on it that way. And it makes it pretty easy to have a healthy meal, and you're not worried about all the serving sizes and that kind of thing. So I want to make sure I'm getting some whole grains into this. And Mia's vegan, and she's asking, are there any other vegans out there? So put in the chat if you're vegan as well. Love to see if who else besides Mia is actually vegan. Glad to have you, Mia. Okay. So let me make sure I was doing this. Okay, yeast flakes. Now, nutritional yeast flakes, that might be a less common ingredient if you're new to plant-based cooking and vegan cooking. They add a smoky, salty flavor. If you can't find yeast flakes, there's also brewer's yeast. Now, brewer's yeast is done on barley, off of beer, and it's a little more malt-like in flavor. I much prefer the nutritional yeast, which is yellow. Now, if you can't find this, you can on page 35, I did put in some alternatives. So you could use Marmite or Vegemite, depending on whether you're from the UK or Australia. And you could even use just some salt, which would add just at least some of that salty sodiumness with sodiumness. That's not a word. Sorry, guys. But it just adds some extra depth of flavor. But yeah, if you can get nutritional yeast flakes, it really adds some great flavor. Okay, I just keep putting all my extras over here to the side. And that's all the dry ingredients. Now again, it calls for onion powder. I'm going to leave it out because I am not using onions. And but you can put onion in here, and what's not in the recipe, but you could do is garlic powder. You could season this up even more with some of the seasonings that you enjoy. I find this bouillon that I buy is really tasty, so I don't need to add a lot. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and see how our bouillon is doing here, dissolving. Getting there. Let me bring it over here so I'm not too far from the microphone. This is actually a vegan bouillon that's beef flavored, and they have a chicken. They have a vegetable, a chicken, and a beef. And it's actually an American company, McCormick's, and yet they don't use it in the States. You know, you'd think nowadays with so much plant-based cooking, they would be all over clean up, but there are lots of other ones. I think there's one called Better Than Bullion. It's in a jar, it's like a paste. And they used to make a beef, a vegetable, a chicken that were all vegetarian. Plus they make the non-vegetarian versions, so you do have to read the labels. I think that one's pretty dissolved. There's still a few chunks. I'm going to mix this I'm going to knead it a little bit, not as much as I would bread, but I will knead a little bit, so that'll get incorporated in there. Okay, so now I can fill up the rest of this with water to the 2-cup line, or for metric would be, boy, now I'm looking at it and I'm wondering if I wrote that right. I apologize, guys. I thought I had double checked the water. For the mils, because on mine it's saying about 500 mils for two cups. I'll have to check that out. You guys can email me and I will double check it, but it's 2 cups. I'm just gonna fill the water back up to there. So in the book, it says like half a cup and 1.5 cups. I just put the hot water and dissolve the bouillon because I know I need to go to the 2-cup line. I just don't want to put 2 cups of boiling water in here because once I put it in here and I knead it by hand, I don't want to burn my hands and it'd be too hot. So that's why. All right, so that's just going to go in here and you see it come together. Might look a little dry, and you can add a little water, but just be patient. It'll probably need in there. And it looks gummy, but it's not. Gluten flour sticks to itself really well. So I'm just going to knead it a little bit. So the more you knead it, the chewier the little steaks will be. So if you like the texture not too chewy, then just knead it till it comes together. And if you want it really chewy, you can knead it more. So that's what it's looking like. Great. Now we're going to go ahead and make the patties. And I'm not going to make them all because I don't want to take up all your time making patties. I'll show you what they look like when we're done. But I'll show you. So you can make them as big or as small as you want. Keep in mind, they're going to almost double. They'll absorb all that yummy broth that we're going to put on top. So I don't want to make them too big. And believe it or not, they're not going to stick together. You could actually boil these in a broth as well. So you can just kind of layer them in here and you're not going to have to worry about them sticking. Pretty easy to do. And you can make them all the same size, or you can make big ones and small ones in case you got kids at home, smaller patties and bigger ones. Yeah. I'm not gonna, like I said, well, I don't need to do up all of this. You get the idea of what we're going to do. We're just going to keep putting all the patties in here. And then we're going to go ahead and we put that broth on top. But I think due to time, 12:30, yeah, I don't want to take too much time, but let me see if there's any questions. Were there any actual questions, Anna, in the chat? I see someone's from Turkey. No questions? That's fine. Okay. Then we'll just do a few more of these. And then we'll do the brownies. That image you can see. I hope I'm doing this close enough so you can see. You see it's actually got like, it's really stretchy. And this just makes such an awesome texture. Just love it. I'm actually old enough to, before we had the gluten flour available so readily, we would make gluten out of wheat and we just wash it. So you take wheat and water, make a big bowl and just wash it in the sink, and you wash all the starch and fiber away. And it's hard to get the flavor into it, whereas with the gluten flour, you can put all the yummy flavor in all at once. It's really hard to not stop. It's really hard to not just finish this batch. All right, so we see someone from LA as well, and she's next to a Whole Foods. Yeah, Whole Foods will have a lot of the different vegetarian, vegan products. And I know there'll be people watching later as well. So, watching the video. Okay, I think you get the idea. So, I will go ahead and put the broth on just so you can see. I just want to make sure the bouillon is you know what? I forgot to put the Bragg's inside there. So Bragg's is just a brand of soy sauce that's done a little differently. The great thing about this recipe, like I said, is all the goodies are going to get absorbed. So even if I forgot the soy sauce inside the patties, I can add it to the broth and it will still get absorbed into the patties. So isn't that great? Looks like I need to add a little more water as well. Let me get to that 4 cups. I used the wrong measuring cup. I have measuring cups that are a little deeper. Okay, just add about a 1/4 cup or so soy sauce. Bragg's if you can get it. Go ahead and incorporate that a little more. And that just goes on in the patties right here. Like that. Look, Bullion didn't get quite all the way dissolved, so go ahead and mix those in a little bit. Okay. All right, and that's going to bake at 350 for about 55 to 60 minutes. I do about 350 convection until all the liquid is dissolved, or almost all the liquid is dissolved. Let me show you what that looks like. Done. Okay, so there we go. That is what they look like done. Just put this aside. Put this aside. So the patties are quite firm now. You can see they're quite firm. And these are so delicious. Now, you can do a lot of different things with these. You could bread them and fry them, which would add more fat, but lots of yumminess too. Or you could just serve them hot like this. These aren't hot, obviously I wouldn't be touching them. You could serve them with gravy. You can actually cook them in gravy, and that's in the cookbook. So you can do the broth that I just did, or you could do rich cashew gravy, add a little water. I did give some instructions in the book. You can also cook these in a tomato sauce, and kind of almost like a reminiscent of a chicken parm, because it's cooked, it'll bring in that tomatoey taste. Yeah, you could cook this in any kind of liquid. That liquid's going to infuse the flavor into these patties. And you can serve them just like this, or again with some gravy. I make these up, throw them in the freezer, and then I can just reheat them in the oven, or I can put them in the frying pan. So they're just a really easy dish to have around, and tastes really yummy. So I'll set that aside again, and we'll make dessert. So we're going to make some black bean brownies. And let me just clean up my workstation just a little bit here. I need a cutting board for the brownies. Okay. Oh. Put this in the sink. Alrighty, so for the black bean brownies, and those are on page 65 of your cookbook. And I did test the weight on this, unlike the patties where I'm a little bit concerned that the math is off, but I'm pretty sure it's right. I'm just not used to seeing milliliters, so forgive me for being a little apprehensive when I see them, because I'm like, is that right? I don't use them very much. I am starting to use them more and more because I like the weights for certain kinds of cooking. I think it's great. You know, you can have the one bowl on the scale, and it's really handy. But I'm new to using weight. I'll be honest, I don't measure much anyways. even when I'm making cookies and stuff, I kind of measure, but kind of don't. I've been cooking since I was 8 years old, so almost 40 years. You do the math on that one. Not quite, almost. Alrighty, so black bean brownies. Let me grab the right tray here with all my ingredients. And you can make these chocolate or carob. To you, your way. I used to make them carob all the time. Now, I did actually measure these out because I've been just using the can for so long. I'm like, I better measure that out in case you can't get the same size can, because I know even my store, sometimes there's a larger can and the smaller can. This is a bit larger can. This is 540 ml or 19 ounces. It works out to 2 cups or 400 grams once they're drained. You could also use garbanzos or chickpeas. Just make sure they are cooked as well. So we're going to go ahead and drain the liquid off. And then I'm going to rinse them. You don't have to, you don't have to really get these clean. There's nothing wrong with the liquid. I just want to take a lot of it off so it's not too, like, so that we're reducing the amount of flavor that it might add and moisture. We don't want to have the brownies too wet. Hopefully you can still hear me. So let me know if you can't hear me when I'm standing way over here. Go ahead and just, one of the things I like about this kind of a can opener, puts the lid back on for me. Almost. Again, you don't have to be too careful. All right, so go ahead and put this in the food presser. I did try this in the blender. It was too thick, didn't work. So if you don't have a food processor, you could mash these beans really well. You could probably blend the beans without all the other ingredients. That might work. I'm trying to think what else you could do if you didn't have a food processor. I think the mashing would help quite a bit. We still have a bit of you still get a little bit of that texture in the brownie, but the flavor would still be good. Okay, and then half a cup or 50 grams of cocoa powder. When we used our had our flour on there, so I can have a little flour. And then half a cup of quick oats, instant oats. A little salt, about a quarter teaspoon or so. And 1 cup of sugar. So this one does have quite a bit of sugar in it. You can use, there's a product, I'm not sure what it's like in your area, but there's like this stevia product that's like 1-to-1. You could leave the sugar out. You could do some maple syrup. You need to cook it just a little longer. The brownies will be a little wetter with maple syrup. But you could also use just regular stevia, like this kind. Again, it will change the texture of the brownie. The sugar does kind of add that brownie-like texture, but you could make these sugar-free if you needed to. Just the texture will be a little different. Go ahead and put 1 cup of sugar in. And you can adjust the sugar to taste as well. If these aren't quite sweet enough for you, you could add a little bit more sugar. And if you want to make them a little healthier, you can add less. I've actually made these with between half a cup, just over half a cup to 3/4 of a cup of sugar. So can be done. Just I'm trying to make my recipes as flexible as possible because there's so many different diets. Yeah, you could use coconut sugar for sure. Absolutely. Monk fruit. In place of the beans, are you thinking, Adam? And you feel free to unmute yourself to answer if you want to. You can throw it in the chat. I've never worked with monk fruit, so I'm not sure. Oh, a sweetener. Oh, interesting. Is it granulated or is it liquid? Both. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. This is pretty flexible. What you can do is bump up the oats. No, I haven't heard of it. Or at least I don't remember. I do have a bad memory. So it's possible my friends have told me about it and I just haven't used it. All right, so that's 1 teaspoon of baking powder. And again, the vegetable oil, I have made it without the vegetable oil. Again, if I'm trying to make this super healthy, you can leave it out. It will change the texture some. So, but again, you can bump up the oat flour. You can take the oat flour down. It depends if you like a gooey brownie or if you like more like a cake-like brownie. Play with it. The great thing about this is the beans are cooked. Instant oats have been slightly pre-steamed, so you don't need to cook this as far as health reasons. Like it's not like it has to be totally cooked. So it's really, you're cooking it to get the texture you want. I'm just getting my, for my oil. Getting lost here. All right, go ahead and put my oil. So I like putting a little oil in for the omega-3 because, so you can eat healthy in a couple different ways. You can have less on your plate and eat rich foods with lots that are, and make sure you're having nutrient dense foods. So that's like really leafy greens, colorful root vegetables, nutrient dense. Nuts and seeds, but nuts and seeds are pretty high calorically. So I like eating rich, nutrition dense foods and eat a smaller portion. Or if you're like my husband, more fiber, less sugar and oil, so you can have a bigger plate. So you can go either way. Okay. No problem finding it at Whole Foods, Wellman's, and even Costco. Yeah, I've never seen it at the Canadian Costco, but, and we don't have Whole Foods here. But I will keep my eye open for it. It might not be on the FODMAP, and that might be why I haven't looked at it, because I do stick to my FODMAP diet probably 75% of the time, maybe 80% of the time. And if I'm going to cheat on my FODMAP diet, I'm going to eat apples and garlic and onions, because that's the 3 things that I can't have that I like to cheat. It's a great diet because you're supposed to cheat, keep the flora, bacteria flora growing in your stomach, so I love it. Real Canadian Superstore. Yeah, I could try there. Thank you. All right, so I'm gonna put a couple teaspoons of vanilla in here, or you could use vanilla bean paste or scrape out the seeds. Vanilla has just, the price of vanilla has just went crazy. I remember buying, not too long ago, I'd buy like 20 vanilla beans for like $25. No, less than that. It wasn't even $1 a bean. And now they're like $2 to $5 a bean. Like, yikes. What's the reason to avoid garlic and onions? There is a, so it's a polio that's in the garlic and onions that trigger my irritable bowel. So it's just that I have a health condition. There's nothing wrong with garlic and onions. They're really healthy. It's only for people who have irritable bowel. Some people with Crohn's find the FODMAP diet helpful. But other than that, yeah, nothing wrong with garlic and onions. They're delicious and they're healthy for the most part. It's the thing with food intolerance to remember is when you have a food intolerance, it really is only about your body's reaction to the food. It doesn't make the food bad. And in fact, it's still giving you nutrients, which is why I really like the way the dietitians promote FODMAP. And I just realized my time. So I'm gonna, because I do want to leave some open, but I've got the brownies done. So we'll just whiz this up so you can see what it looks like. All right, so it's gonna get noisy for a sec. All right, that's it. Pretty simple. Maybe I think it was 2 minutes. Oh, look, the potatoes are getting close. Let me turn off that timer. I'm just going to give these a quick stir. I know you can't quite see me when I'm in the oven, so I apologize for that. I tried to adjust my cameras as much as I could this morning. I'm just going to give these a quick stir, and then I'll be right back to it. Okay. All right, so I want to show you. So you can see that there's still some oat chunks in there. That's okay, no problem. And you can do these a little smoother. Like I said, you can do this with carob if you want. Where did I put my? And I'm using a 9x9 pan. You could do an 8x8 to make them a little thicker. Or you could use a cupcake. Where did I put my? Sorry guys, feeling a little woohoo. See, now I just realized I forgot the vinegar in those potatoes. That's new, and I don't know why it is because I haven't researched it, but I've been putting a little red wine or white wine, I prefer the white wine vinegar, in my potatoes, a couple tablespoons, and I find it makes them a little moister and just adds some more flavor. It's that acidic. Actually, I did the Top Chef University class, and it was like 100, it's over 100 hours, 200, I think it was 200 hours. And that was one of the tips they had, adding a little acid. You could do lemon juice as well. Just adding a little acid, add some flavor. So I realized when I went in the cupboard, that's what I forgot to add into those potatoes. So I got talking to you guys, forgot. So follow the recipe. I am ADHD, in case you haven't noticed yet. Isn't it great that the food is so forgiving? You know, it's not really going to matter. Potatoes aren't going to mind that I forgot the vinegar. And I've made it lots without it, so pretty flexible. All right. Yeah, that's a pretty good. I mean, you can see that about the consistency you want. I probably would do this a little longer just to make it a little less chunky, but it'll be fine. That instant oatmeal will absorb really well into the liquid. I like to get all the goodies out of there. Oh, we're down to 8 minutes. I want to show you the finished stuff here. I'm glad I sent you the plant-based guide ahead of time. Okay, so that we're going to cook for about 18 minutes. Now here's where it's going to change the texture depending on how long you cook it. If you cook it about 20 minutes, it'll be quite gooey still. And if you want to cook it longer to like 24, 25 minutes, then it will be more like more cake-like. So again, that's up to you. You can change the texture, which is kind of cool. So let me show you. I did a couple up at a time. And this one here is with 3/4 cup of oat flour and a little less sugar. So that one is with 3/4 cup of oats, and I used only 1/2 cup of sugar, or 3/4 cup of sugar. I'm sorry, guys, I apologize. 3/4 cup of sugar, so I used less sugar. So you can see it still works. So if you were to use the monk fruit sweetener or the coconut, you can just adjust. It just changed the texture a little bit. So these are more cake-like, but they still have good flavor. Yum. Okay, and then these ones I cooked for a little less time. These are 18 minutes. And I used less oat flour. I'll show you what these ones look like. Now these look more like, to me, a traditional brownie. So you can see how it gets that crinkle on it. And if you did these in the muffin tin, then of course you'd have that crinkle all the way around. So you have that like chewy, yummy goodness. So you see, it's still totally edible. It's just a little heavier, a little moister. But that's what it looks like. So let me go ahead and get our potatoes out of the oven so you can see that. Have all these dishes everywhere. Well, this is reality. In my kitchen, it kind of looks like this. Everything everywhere. Okay, let's get those potatoes out. All right, so there they are. Oh, wish I had smell-o-vision. The rosemary smells amazing. It just smells amazing. So I'm going to do a little plate for you. And let me give you one more tip. One more tip. Now remember the plate method I was talking about? So you can use the inside of this plate for a regular size meal. And if it's someone who is really hungry, they could go to the outside edges. Or if you are like me, heading close in years to needing to watch your waistline like I do, then I actually use just a smaller plate. So now I'm not having to sit there and measure out and count calories all the time, but I just use a smaller plate. So I still put the same ratio of food on the plate, whether I'm feeding my husband or my son, my 20-year-old son, or myself. That's why I love the plate method. So I left my spatula over here. So we want half the plate to be veggies. These look amazing. It could probably have been just a titch longer, but I wanted to show them to you before. So I'll take the ones that are cooked the most. All right. So there we go. I'm getting half my plate, and I'll probably go a little, get some more of the actual more veggies. Oh, the rosemary smells really good too. Put some of that on there. And then I want to grab a gluten patty. Yeah. So this one's probably a large gluten patty, so it's taking up probably a third of the plate, and this is a good half. Now, on those sheets, I did show you like it's kind of the guideline is about a quarter. I'm like, where's my whole grains? Missing, right? I have whole grains in the brownie. Remember the oats? And the beans have fiber, which is where you're trying to get those. And the cocoa powder has quite a bit of fiber, plus it has a lot of the nutrients that a whole grain would have. It's got manganese and some calcium, iron. So believe it or not, some cocoa has it in there. Carob would not have the calcium, doesn't have the calcium, but it does have some iron, not as much as chocolate, but it has, oh, I'm sorry guys, I'm drawing a blank at what else it has, but it has lots of fiber in carob, so that would be good too. And I put some whole grains in the patty. So that is a plate that has the nutrients you need for one meal. And then the trick is to eat variety. So for breakfast, then I'll do a fruit meal, like I'll do fruit and other grains, maybe some toast. I hope that helps you to see how easy plant-based cooking can be. And this, you know, you can really make this culturally appropriate as well, especially East Indian food, really easy to make plant-based. I mean, really easy to make even vegan. I know there's some creams, but there's so many great choices. There's coconut milk and cashew. You can make a cashew cream in place of the dairy, and just go to town on any of those ethnic, delicious recipes that are out there. So again, my name is Angela Poch. My website is angelapoch.com or bodymindhealthcoach.com. It's in my cookbook. I have free cookbooks on my website. And if you have any questions, feel free to email me, and I would love it. The cookbook from Mia, yeah, I put it on it's in this chat at the very, very beginning, Mia. If you scroll through the chat to the very beginning, you can download it from there. If not, feel free to email me or contact me through Facebook or my website. And if you're still having trouble, get a hold of A Small World in the events page, because on the events page, I did put the cookbook there as well. So find me. I want to make sure you get the book. Any other questions that you might have for me or what I made today? Feel free to unmute yourself. You're welcome. Thank you, Mia. And thanks for everyone who participated in the chat. It's great to hear where you're from. I love it. I love to.
No, thank you. Thank you for showing us how you made the dish, but also sharing your recipes with us.
You're welcome. I love sharing. Thank you, everyone. Well, I'm so glad. I was going to try one thing, but I don't think it's going to work, unfortunately. I was going to try and turn my camera so you could see my view, but I did post some in some of the chats. So I don't know if you see any of I think there was a posting in the Small World. There was one of the blog posts was your view from your office. And I posted some pictures of my windows on that page. So feel free to go there. So yeah. I will stick around for a few more minutes, because if you can't get the cookbook, or you need to write down my website, yeah. And both those website addresses, Angela Poch and bodymindhealthcoach.com, they'll get you to the same website. It's just the Angela Poch goes to my page where I have my therapist stuff, but just look for the tab that says resources. I think it says resources. Boy. That's terrible, you guys. I just go so blank sometimes. Well, you know what happens? I do my own website.